Hey, how's it going? And today I'm going to be customizing a PS4 controller. I have here the eXtremeRate controller shell. This is the shell, or this is a kit that comes with the shell and all the necessary tools included. Sort of like an all-in-one kit to sort of transform and make the look of your controller different. The kit is pretty complete and comes with the shell itself, a little warranty card, and all the necessary screws, even a little screwdriver and some metal and plastic picks to help you pry open the PS4 controller. As well as this specific kit also comes with buttons to replace the square, triangle, circle, and X buttons. On top of customizing the shell, I'm also changing out the analog sticks. I have here a sort of OEM style Xbox analog stick, and they are interchangeable between the two. It's going to be a nice little change up and hopefully feel better to use and grip a little better than the stock PS4 analog sticks. Alright, so I'm going to start off with a fresh brand new controller as my base. This kit requires a specific controller, mainly just the newer style of a controller with the light bar on top. One way to check is either check the model number or where the sort of barcodes are. For example, this specific shell kit requires you to use a controller that ends with a CCT2, and it's going to vary depending from kit to kit, but in the kit that you do use, just make sure that the model numbers sort of line up with each other. And once you verify that you've got a compatible controller, we can get started and start taking this thing apart. And this is not necessarily going to be a tutorial on how to take apart these controllers, as this was my first time disassembling a PS4 controller, but I will leave some videos down in the description below, which did help me in my process, as these are pretty tricky to take apart. And I mainly just wanted to make a video on the kit itself and how easy it is to assemble a controller inside this kit. So, first thing I did was take out the 4 screws on the back of this controller. That's a pretty simple step, and honestly, the easiest thing to do on this thing is taking apart these controllers is actually a lot more, not complicated, just tricky, as once you have these 4 screws removed, you have to sort of pry and crack open these things, as there's a lot of clips that hold it together, and you just sort of have to run these little clips all along the sides of the controller to sort of open it up slowly. And after about 10 minutes of getting nowhere with these sort of plastic sort of guitar picks, I did end up using these sort of metal tongs that did make it a lot easier to open these things up. Honestly, the videos online make it seem a lot easier to open these things than they seem. The main thing I was just concerned about was cracking it open and unfortunately breaking it, as there's a lot of ribbon cables inside that you need to open the controller up slowly. And patience was a virtue here, as after about another 10 minutes of fiddling and trying to open these sort of trying to open it up, I was successful. Unfortunately, I used a little bit too much force and just sort of ripped the back end out, and a ribbon cable did come out to the charging port, but future me can tell you that the controller does work and it does charge properly, and I was very glad I did not do any damage here. So once you gently take out the back of the controller and remove the ribbon cable properly without damaging it, we can start taking out the guts of the controller. To do this, we're going to need to remove the battery and locate a sort of screw in the center of the battery holder. Just take that screw out and the whole sort of battery tray should come out and reveal the motherboard of the controller. After that, we're going to take off the ribbon cable that attaches to the touch bar, or the touch bar button on the front of the controller. That way we can remove the motherboard entirely, along with the triggers and all that. I definitely spent way too long trying to just take it out as one whole without doing that. And yeah, just make sure you take out that ribbon cable and the whole motherboard should come off the face of the controller easily. And you can take out the touch bar from here. Next, I'm going to take out these sort of pads on the back of this controller. We're going to be reusing them on the new shell, so we need to make sure we take out both the pads and all the buttons that did come with the original controller. Now, unfortunately, this is where I ran into some fitment issues. In particular, where the home button lies, the pad did not line up, or at least the patterns did not line up. so that it would fit in securely. Even though that the shell claimed that it needed this specific model number, unfortunately the fitment was not correct, and I did have to do some modifications so that this sort of shell, or this pad, did fit over the home button, and the home button could click and be used properly. So everything about getting this kit, just be aware that you might have to get an extra, or use a pair of wire cutters or just a sharp object to sort of cut down some material where the home button is, so that the pad can fit properly and the home button can be used properly. And other than that, honestly everything else fit pretty well. The D-pad button fit nicely over the case, and the membrane or padding did fit properly here, and I didn't have any fitment issues when aligning everything and putting back together. Same thing with the X, circle, square, and triangle buttons. Those fit up pretty much nicely, and like the D-pad, the membrane fit nicely, and no fitment issues there. And after putting back the touchpad, this thing is ready to be put back together, and we can start, or at least the modification is done, and we can start putting this controller back together. Oh, but before I forget, let's put in the new joysticks. After taking off the old ones, the new Xbox OEM style ones are a direct replacement. So just make sure that the notch is lined up. They can only go in one direction, and they should fit in nice and snug, like a direct replacement. And as far as these joysticks go, I actually really like these. They feel pretty much like an OEM style, and they fit in securely without any problems. If you're looking for a different style of joystick or just a replacement, I highly recommend these. I'll have these linked in the description as well. Alright, so once we got everything in order, let's put this thing back together. The motherboard did fit pretty securely on the new shell, and once I got the ribbon cable for the touch bar routed inside the motherboard properly, we can plug that back in and start screwing in the battery tray and plugging in the battery. I do also want to note here that the trigger, or at least the left trigger from this controller, did feel a little sticky. I didn't know if I did that while I was disassembling it, but as soon as I unclipped it and clipped it back in, it felt basically brand new, and I think it just needed to be adjusted. Alright, the next step here is getting the back half ready. The light bar and the little daughter board for the charging port come off fairly easy. There's for the most part, they just come off by hand. They're clipped in, and just gently sort of take them out, and for the most part they can just come off really easily. After transferring the daughter board for the charging cable, the fitment is actually really good. I was able to fit a cable in rather well, and it felt pretty much like an OEM shell, so this is actually really good. As far as actually plugging this thing back in, or plugging the ribbon cable back in to get this thing back together, I actually had to take the daughter board out and plug it in while it's out of the shell. This is actually rather difficult to do while it's in the shell, so I'd recommend just taking it out, plugging in that ribbon cable, then screwing everything back in and putting the light bar and just putting everything back together, as this made it a lot easier, as I spent way too much time trying to plug in that ribbon cable while it's attached to the bottom half of the shell. Once that's done, this thing is actually ready to be put back together. Sort of align everything properly and click everything together. There's a lot of clips around, like the OEM style of controller shell, so just go along the edges of the controller or the seams of it and clip everything into place. I was really surprised how well this felt like an original OEM PS4 shell, and once put back together, the controller felt solid. This is definitely I was kind of hesitant at first when I got the shell itself, as it kind of felt flimsy, especially with anything else, but once all the electronics are put back and the buttons are in place with the actual same membranes that they came with on the original PS4 controller, everything feels solid, and all the buttons feel just as clicky and as satisfying to press as they would in an original PS4 controller. And besides the fitment issues that I had, which if you're willing to do, some minor modifications to it, honestly, these controller shells are actually really cool. They definitely provide a unique look, and if you liked a lot of their designs, because they make a ton of different colors and sort of patterns online, yeah, I definitely recommend them. like I said, the fitment issue is kind of worrying, and it might vary from controller to controller as there are different sub-models of this same controller. But, you know, like I said, if you're willing to sort of do some minor modifications, this is going to provide a pretty unique look to your controller, and honestly, I recommend the actual shell themselves. And same goes with these analog sticks that I got. I'll leave a link in the description to both of these things, but the analog sticks were pretty much identical to what you'd find on like an Xbox controller. And if you're looking to change up some sort of worn analog sticks on your PS4 controller or even your Xbox controller, I definitely recommend these as they feel almost identical to the originals. But that's going to be for me today. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far into the video, feel free to give it a like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to see some more videos, and hey, hopefully you have a good one. Take care now. Bye.